everyone, to this episode of Perpetual Perspectives, powered by Vest Exchange. Vest is a novel perpetual futures exchange built on ZK Sync. This is Stoic, and today I have the pleasure of having with me Mercury, aka TraderMercury on Twitter. He's back on the podcast for a second time. We won't be getting into a lengthy introduction or get into his background. We recorded actually a 2-hour episode the first time he was on. So if you're interested, go back and watch that one. But just giving a brief intro, I believe he's been trading for over 7 years now. His system is pretty simple and elegant. Uses horizontal levels, I believe 200 MA and 200 EMA, and market structure for the most part. And he talks a lot about focusing on psychology and discipline, which are subjects that I think about a lot. And this is exactly why it's a pleasure to have him on for a second time. And I wanted to catch up, honestly. So we're just recording this conversation for anyone that wants to listen in. Thank you for coming back on, Mercury, and thank you for taking the time out. How's everything going?
It's a pleasure, man. Thank you for having me back. It's crazy that we recorded the last episode exactly a year ago from today, and that was not deliberate. It just kind of happened that way.
Yeah. I was just talking to you before this, and for anyone that's listening, and we recorded an episode exactly a year ago on the 13th of February, 2024. And actually, it wasn't intentional at all. We were considering recording early in the week, but I had some things going on, so I wasn't able to make that time. So it's really cool that we're recording exactly a year from the first episode.
Yeah, man.
A lot has happened. Yeah. So let's get into it. So last time you were on, I went back and looked at where Bitcoin was. It was trading around 49,000. And then we went into the 60s to 70s where we had that range. It was like a 7-8 month range. And then we had another expansion, and now we're in this kind of rotational regime. So first things first, how has everything been for the past year? How's your trading looked? How's life?
Man, you know what? Life is amazing, and life is a bull market, and this has been a bull market, and my portfolio's not too far away from new all-time highs. I managed to survive that 8-month-long range for long enough to eventually see, better days. And yeah, I had really high conviction in early September. I think people that follow me are already aware of this, but I had very high conviction. Putting in a higher low on the weekly really skewed my perception of like probabilities, and it reminded me a lot of the bear market bottom. And I've, without trying to sound like this egotistical maniac or anything, I have caught every single major rally that this market has given to some degree. I've actually missed 2 of the Bitcoin rallies, so that's totally fine. But we can get into that later as to why I missed them. It was deliberate. But I've made money from every single rally. I've been bullish for every single rally. I've had large positions, large exposure for every single rally, but I've only ever compared to a bear market bottom once. And that was September. And so that paid off very, very handsomely. And my portfolio hit, way beyond any all-time high it had ever seen before. And I remember targeting a 1.618 fib extension, which was $102,000 on Bitcoin. And I had a really big swing long spot position in addition to my ledger account, which I had never taken profit from at any point the past 7 years. I've just been accumulating Bitcoin. It used to be dollar cost average, and then at some point in Q1 of 2022, I stopped dollar cost averaging. I kind of just started doing more like spot buys, like, hey, I had a good month, I had a good quarter, let me buy some more Bitcoin. And I finally took profit on that ledger investment, as well as that swing trade at $102,000 Bitcoin. And with that money, I've retired my parents, and that money will never see crypto ever again. It is sitting in a bank account nice and safe, and my parents don't have to work anymore, which is I think we talked about this in our last podcast. I think you asked me something along the lines of like, what is your goal? And,
Yes.
I was talking about the fire in my belly. The thing that keeps me going is retiring my parents. So that's been my goal since I was 14. My family's been through a lot. I come from a really humble background. We were piss poor, and then actually millionaires, and then we lost everything. And then for 2 weeks, when I was about 14 years old, for 2 weeks or so, we were homeless. So, it took a lot of like clawing to get back just to be able to get by. And my parents have never really been able to recover from that. but they've always supported me. They've always, allowed me to be the best version of myself, which sounds really corny, but it's very, very true. My dad is an absolute legend, man. I can't emphasize that enough. So yeah, it's just amazing. I'm so grateful for this market.
That's truly inspirational, man. And yeah, I remember we were talking about it last time a year ago. Your goal in terms of retiring your parents, and I'm genuinely happy that you were able to do that because that feeling is unmatched. Like
Absolutely.
being able to do that is an unmatched feeling. But we'll circle back to that as well. In terms of the market, how do you view the current environment in terms of Bitcoin and alts? I mean, I believe you put out your thoughts pretty frequently, but just for the purpose of anyone listening in, how do you see the current environment in terms of Bitcoin and alts?
Yeah. So it's very odd because there's a big dichotomy between traders right now. There's, the majority of the market, which is ironic because Bitcoin actually makes up the majority of the market. The majority of the market participants, at least what it seems like in terms of like, perspective and sentiment, seems like they're down horrendous. Actually, I think Delta XBT, I might have that wrong, but I think Delta put out a poll today and it said something along the lines of like, how was your performance the past year or so? And greater than 50% of people polled that their account is down negative 50%. And it's like, man, that's brutal. Like, that's crazy. And then you look at Bitcoin and it's, twiddling its thumbs at $100,000. And so it kind of sets like this massive dichotomy between the people that have thrived have really thrived. The Bitcoin maximalists, the SOL maximalists, people
Right.
that are very skilled, that know how to rotate, things of that nature, have done incredibly well because there's been so many opportunities in this market. And that's the reality of it. So, but then you have, my altcoin bags and dinosaur bags and my meme coins have sold off. And it's like, okay, dude, what did you expect? They're worth zero. They're total vaporware. It's, PopCap fundamentals weren't any different when they were $1 billion market cap as to what they are today, right? They're the exact same. So like you get what you ask for, right? You play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. So it sets a really strong barrier. But the thing that rubs me the wrong way is like the altcoin sentiment. And again, altcoins make up a very small fraction of the market, but that's primarily where it seems like, at least, where more retail investors, go, or retail traders automatically go. And it's so ironic to me. The market is full of irony because people will argue, you know, why didn't you buy Bitcoin? And it's like, well, I didn't buy Bitcoin because I have $5,000 to my name. I'm just now starting to trade crypto. And, Bitcoin, even if it goes from 20,000 to 100,000, that's only a 5X. That's not going to change my life. So it's like, oh, okay, that makes sense. So you go trade altcoins, right? You can get your 5X, 10X, 20X, 50X, 100X gains there instead. And you can actually make something life changing. So you primarily focus on altcoins and you ask that person, okay, so that makes sense. You're trading altcoins so that you can outperform Bitcoin. What's your portfolio looking like? Are you outperforming Bitcoin? And they're like, no, I'm down negative 80%. And then the
Right.
question is, so why are you trading alts? I thought the premise was to trade altcoins to outperform
Mhm.
Bitcoin, because even though you think Bitcoin goes up, it's not good enough, right? It's not a sufficient amount of gain to be able to change your life from it or do anything spectacular, right? And run home to mom and celebrate. So why then, if your altcoin is not outperforming Bitcoin, why are you trading that altcoin? And then that person, I hate to say this, like back and forth, whatever, but I've had this conversation with so many of my followers,
Mhm.
and it just
Right.
seems like so much cope that I just want to
Yeah.
rip off the band-aid for anybody that's listening to this. Because then the immediate rebuttal is, well, I didn't have a crystal ball. I didn't know that the market would go negative 80% lower. I didn't know that my altcoin would sell off and fall off a cliff. But that's cope. It absolutely is, right? And there's a quote out there that goes something along the lines of, I'm going to butcher this, but it goes something along the lines of, every man has the brain power to make money in markets, but not every man has the stomach, right?
Yes.
So, like,
Yeah.
when you look at a chart, you know exactly which way that chart is headed within 4 seconds of looking at this chart. I call it the 4 second rule. Within 4 seconds, you know exactly which direction that's headed. So don't tell me that at negative 40% lower on your, with entry, you didn't know that it might
You
head
didn't know.
negative 80%
Right.
lower, right? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It was just you decided no, I'm not going to cut for whatever reason, right? Maybe you still had that thesis, it was high conviction for you. Maybe you got lulled into like complacency or paralysis, but for whatever reason, you decided to execute or not execute. So it's not that the market is brutal. And this is something that I'm really struggling with. And I'm sorry if I'm going on such a rant, but I just feel so
No,
passionately
no.
about
Yeah,
this.
yeah, yeah.
And it kind of takes me back to, we might have even had this same conversation in the last podcast. I don't know. It takes me back to in June of 2023, right? Yeah, I think so. June 2023, Bitcoin was trading somewhere around like $30,000. And there was some really big name Twitter influencer, I don't know who it was, 300,000 followers plus, put out a post and said something along the lines of, which market has been more brutal, 2023 or 2019? And I go and look at June 2023 prices and I'm like, okay, Bitcoin's up 100%. And then I go look at, June 2019 prices and I'm like, okay, Bitcoin's up 180%. So you're basically asking me, which market is more brutal? The one that's up 160% or the one that's up 100% from the past 6 months? And it's like, where's the brutal exact? Where, like, I don't get it. Are we trading the same market? Like, I'm actually lost for words. So
Yeah.
then everybody has something to cope with, man. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Then the rebuttal became, oh, well, if you missed out on these 10 days on the Bitcoin move from the Pico bottom, then you missed out on 80% of the rally on Bitcoin, right? So basically, if you weren't an investor, or if you weren't really, really sharp about executing, then you missed out on the entire rally. But then we go into this kind of rabbit hole where I can just debunk every single coping argument that you give me with, there's a study that was put out, I believe either by Financial Times or Forbes, and it was like put out a decade ago, like early 2000s or something. And it talks about how the stock market since 1960s or something into like early 2000s, every single year for the stock market, about 2 weeks out of the year account for greater than 50% of the gains on the stock market. So when you present that argument to me, hey, 2023 is brutal, right? This isn't a bull market. It's brutal. I hate this market. Crypto sucks. When you're saying that, and then you use, oh, if you missed out on these 8 days or whatever, right? When you say that, you're basically saying the thing that happened that is normal happened again because it's normal and it sucks. And it's like, the market, man. Like it's just the
Yeah.
market. You just have to, deal with it. You have to figure out a way. You have to stop allowing yourself to be caught off guard by normal market behaviors. Altcoins go down and trends, just like we're here for the crazy gains to the upside, trends, break down and you see crazy loss to the downside as well, right? Negative 80% drops in just the 2 or 3 months on a lot of these altcoins. So that's normal, man. You have to be ready and prepared for that. There's not really much room for, woe is me, let me point the blame towards the universe or the market makers or, this or that. It's only execution or lack thereof. So that's been something that I see very presently in today's environment, because a lot of people have convinced themselves that this is a brutal market. But, I'm sorry, I keep going on a tangent, but I call this the paradox of emotional attribution. That's my attempt of trying to be like a Greek philosopher, right? So the paradox of emotional attribution. You've seen the Wall Street cheat sheet chart. Wow, that was hard. The Wall Street cheat sheet chart, right? And it says like, hey, at the top, this is euphoria, this is mania, this is complacency, and at the
Right.
bottom,
Yeah.
this is like capitulation and blah, blah, blah. Well,
Yep.
it's kind of a paradox because for every person that's euphoric at the highs, there's someone that's getting absolutely destroyed, right? There's someone that is getting obliterated because they're on way too high of leverage, or they've been revenge
Yeah.
shorting, or they've been, missing out. They sold their spot bags way too early, and then from there, everything just went downhill. They got in their own heads, right, and went on this like tilt kind of spree. So it's a paradox, right? And I think that a lot of the sentiment that we're seeing today is not necessarily just because altcoins are not, breaking out and performing well the way that everyone kind of hopes they would, myself included. It's not just because of that. It's because of this fallacy that people have that number go higher saves you. right? The market
Yeah.
going higher is going to be what saves me. But as a
Mm,
trader, that's never been true. If you
right.
are primarily, if you sit yourself down at the screen and your primary kind of goal is to trade the market and not invest, not look for, nice spotty opportunities every quarter or whatever, you're trading. If that's the case, then number go up does not necessarily mean that you're going to do well. And I think that's the kind of thing that people struggle with, is that, and then you go onto crypto Twitter or whatever, and you see, oh my God, bull markets, they're so easy. It's like everyone wants to say, oh my God, they're so easy. They're so easy. Well, if they're so easy, then how come everyone's not retired?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So
Would you?
number go up does not save anybody. I had to listen to people in 2020 and 2021 say that if they had been here in 2017 when Bitcoin was $1,000 and it rallied 20x into 20,000, they would be retired by now. Or, if they caught this ICO or whatever, they would be retired by now. And then they go through the entire 2020 or 2021 bull market, and then again, Bitcoin rallies from 3,000 to 60, and that's a 20x, and then they're still not retired. So it's like, how are you convincing yourself that if you had been here, right? If you would have been perfectly placed in the market right before it went up like crazy, you'd be, successful. But all of a sudden, because the market is chopping, or because the year is different, or because the ticker is different, right? People have told me, oh my God, I wish I was here for Dogecoin when it went from 0.2 of a penny to 75 cents, because that was such an easy trade. And, it's so obvious and blah, blah, blah. And I would have, went and bought a private island somewhere. But then they watched Pepe rally, get created in that same summer of 2023 and didn't do anything about it, or lost money trying to trade Pepe. And the same thing with WIF, and then the same thing with, Popcat or MOG or this coin or Trump coin or whatever, right? So it's like, how exactly do we have this fallacy that number go up saves us? The market is not going to save you. You have to save yourself.
Yeah, 100%. Do you think, a lot of people say, oh, the last cycle basically set a precedence for this cycle in terms of holding a lot of garbage? Would you say that's not the case, and it's just aggregate human behavior? Like, it's basically the same every cycle, and that's really why it's like the chicken and egg thing. That's really why we have so much reflexivity when it comes to crypto in general. That human aggregate human behavior, like fear and greed. Would you say that, or what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, there's another amazing quote out there that goes something along the lines of, the market is different, or the market is the same as it was 20 years ago, because it's different today the same way that it was different back then. And I really, really, really believe in that. The market's always going to act in the same kind of behaviors, right? It's going to have the same kind
Right.
of dynamics. It's going to have the same kind of like rotationary, liquidity and the way that it trickles. It's going to have the same way of capturing people's attention and, defying logic or defying gravity for those specific coins at certain times, right? It's always going to act in that manner. So I think the main difference between last cycle and this cycle is that last cycle, we were trying to convince everybody that this was like innovative technology that would change the world. And 2017 was a lot of that too. But like, oh my God, it was so dumb in 2017. There's like Denta coin, which was like literal like dentistry coin on the blockchain. It was so stupid. But, it started to become more like solidified. It started to become more legitimate feeling, at least. So we tried to convince everybody that like layer ones are the future and whatever. And obviously Harmony's not doing too well right now. So like, that's the main difference. Whereas this time people have kind of just, taken the smoke and mirrors totally away and have just said, listen, you guys know that we don't do anything, but just buy our coin. It's like, I mean, well, and so it's the same dynamics. It's the same, like, it's the same behaviors, but it's just, the space has gotten dumber, for lack of a better way of saying it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, we shifted from the VC coins to the meme coins, saying that, oh, like, meme coins are better because, there's no VCs involved. But I mean, it's really the same thing. Like,
Yeah, and then you get a
there's a lot
dev
more
that dumps
garbage.
20% of the
Yeah,
supply on you
it's
and
just
rugs to zero,
exactly
and you're like, oh, how is this different than a VC coin?
right.
So yeah.
Exactly. Along the same lines, what are your thoughts on two things? One, has Bitcoin separated itself in terms of as an asset from the rest of the space. And also there's there's some thoughts circulating about the fact that Bitcoin has separated itself from a standard 4-year cycle. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I definitely think Bitcoin has separated itself from the rest of the market because it's just become that much more of like a discrepancy between, hey, crypto is not a scam, but inside of crypto, this stuff is scams, right? So it's kind of like it's allowed us to point to something else and say, well, this is legitimate, but that stuff, yeah, that's, you can call that scams, you can call it degenerate gambling, online casinos, whatever, right? So I think it actually helps Bitcoin kind of set like more of a reputation for itself inside of crypto. The whole 4-year cycles thing, I don't really have an opinion on that. Yeah, I try to stay away from very long term kind of like predictions because I've never really found them useful. But I will say the main thing that sticks out to me is that the 4-year cycles, at least thus far, and believe me, I had to hear this in 2020 and 2021 as well, the 4-year cycles will never happen again, right? Everyone knows about the
Mm,
4-year cycles now, so it's never going to happen again. But maybe, perhaps, right? We can just play this like constant Ouroboros like paradox kind of thing.
right.
Because everyone thinks that it won't happen again, it's going to play
It-
out the
it's
same way that it always does. So it's like, is that the argument, or is it just, hey, this is actually done for, it was never going to last forever kind of thing? I don't know, but yeah, it's definitely an interesting thought. I don't really know what to say about it though. But main thing, at least thus far, 4-year cycle has played out exactly the way that it said it would. Right?
right.
Everyone thought it would. So that's pretty awesome, if you're asking me.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, I don't really look into, like, I'm not really a cycle person. I just look at what's in front of me, and I don't really look too far ahead. And speaking of looking far ahead, do you think things will change? Like, what's your thought of how the space can potentially change, or do you even think about that? Like, what changes can take place and what crypto might look like in the future?
Um, no, I don't have any thoughts about that because every cycle is something different. And
Right.
even if it's not a cycle in terms of like 4 years, right? It can be whatever the hell. It can just be a sustained drawdown for 3 months, and then we get another leg upwards, and now new narratives have entered the market, and we get kind of new flavors and whatever. And it's not so heavily focused on like degenerate on-chain meme coins or whatever the hottest fad is, right? So like in 2017, we had ICOs. In 2020, we had DeFi and then NFTs and layer ones. And then this market, we've obviously had meme coins and AI and RWA and whatever, right? And Solana. So, like, I don't know what's going to come next, but I definitely think that it's going to be a new flavor. It's the market is too opportunistic with new things, and it's too new. The market itself is too new. Crypto is such a small fraction of the piece of the pie of the overall traditional finance world that you can't really get too stuck on something, right? I feel like that mostly applies to pretty much everything except maybe Bitcoin. Um, so yeah, it's just you have to be able to adapt to whatever the newest, hottest fad is, and just kind of look to take advantage of it. But I don't know what that is because if I could kind of predict what that would be, one, I wouldn't tell you if I'm being honest with you,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
and two, um, I wouldn't be here. I would be on a private island. So
Yeah, 100%. I agree with you. I mean, there's always going to be something new and shiny. Like you said, this market particularly is opportunistic, and it has a way of generating new narratives and new shiny things. So let's pivot a little bit. I read this tweet from Ryan, the Flow Horse, on Twitter. And one thing that stood out to me, he said something along the lines of, "When I sit at my desk, it's only for one reason: to make money." And I see a lot of people are trading, this environment currently, probably on high leverage, trying to catch, I don't know, the local bottom or generational bottom, whatever they want to call it. And there's a lot of mistakes being made just out of sheer boredom, right? How do you combat this personally? Like, I know there's a lot of people getting chopped up in this range currently.
real life is an escape from markets, man, and I can't emphasize that enough. And I really like that post by Ryan, and I believe I replied to it because it resonated with me too. But it's like every button press should serve a purpose, right? And they kind of teach you this in sports as well. I mean, everything should serve a purpose. Don't just do things just because you think that that's what should be done. Everything needs to serve a very specific purpose. So um, it's just being more methodical. It's being more disciplined, but that doesn't just come naturally. That's something that you have to reinforce within yourself or actually consciously attempt to take on in order to finally achieve that. But I detach from markets, man. And there's actually a study out there somewhere that um, went into professional video gamers for first-person shooter games, and it was talking about how even though this person has dedicated their lives and professional careers or whatever to this video game, and they absolutely love this game, you don't get good at anything without being passionate about it, right? Let's get that clear. So these people, professional gamers, absolutely love these games, but their dopamine would spike every time they would die in the video game. And so then they
Mm,
would take 3 or 4 seconds to respawn. And then, as you can see, it would spike. And then, in the middle of respawn, it would start to crawl back down. And then, as soon as they spawned, it went stagnant again. It'd start to fall off and back into that valley until the next time that they died. And then they got a dopamine spike. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to think about video games that way, right? It should be that video games are a release. It should be that this person loves this video game and they're playing something that they really enjoy. So they should be getting the most kind of dopamine injections from when they're playing. But the reality is they're so focused, they're so honed in on that video game that they're not allowing themselves to enjoy it. And I feel like there's a really good parallel here for markets because I'm the most stressed out when I'm in positions, right? Because I have to worry about invalidations. I have to worry about position sizing. I have to worry about exchanges not doing what they should do, right? And being illiquid or just freezing things or going down or whatever, right? There's always something to worry about. I have to worry about how much profit I'm taking. Am I taking enough profit? Am I taking too much? Am I going to be able to rotate? What's the next hottest thing? Is this going to break out? Is this trade going to trigger? Oh my God, there's so many things that you have to worry about. But all of a sudden, when the market starts to downtrend and I'm a long biased only trader and there's nothing for me to do, or the market's chopping inside of a range, and I don't really trade ranges at this point in my career anymore, I kind of just prioritize swings. So whenever the market does that, I kind of just F off, right? I just kind of go do something else and I detach from the market. And ironically, that is what provides me so much peace and the ability to kind of reset mentally so that the next time that the market trends and opportunity is abundant once again, and it seems like there's an incredible opportunity in front of my face, like September, then I have the mental capacity to then go in and apply the courage and the capital and take that position, find the exposure, put on those trades, manage those trades, not take too much profit too early, and pay full attention to this game and really just ace it, right? And then whenever the market gets boring again or the market sells off, I walk away and that's when I feel the most at peace. So you have to find that nice balance. You have to find that nice middle ground. The people in my Discord actually have a running joke because in the bear market, I was deliberately taking vacations because there was nothing for me to do, and I was like, "This market sucks." So now it's become every time Mercury goes on vacation, the market sells off, right? And it's kind of just been like a coincidental kind of thing, but
yeah.
but yeah, it's like that. Like the market sucks, then I'm not going to pay attention to the market. There's no reason for me to sit down at my desk and trade necessarily. I'll probably just play a video game instead. I really enjoy teaching my dog new tricks. My dog is incredibly disciplined. I take her to trainings once a week, but I also do a lot of home training with her. I love spending time with my dog. We go on walks in the morning, clears my mind. I love spending time with my wife. I know people think about their wives or whatever as like the old ball and chain, but that's not true, man. I love spending time with my wife. I wouldn't have married her, uh, if that weren't the case. And and I like playing video games, and I've been really trying to hone in on a workout routine. So I'm going 5 or 6 days a week. All this stuff takes my mind off of markets and allows me to be the best version of myself whenever I am forced to come into the market once again, whenever opportunity has presented itself.
That's beautiful. And there's so many different subjects we can go down here. But one quote this reminds me of is something from Nietzsche's, and he says, "He who cannot obey himself will be commanded."
Mm,
And this leads me to my next point. I think a lot of people. So taking a step back, for let's just hypothetically, you had a goal in terms of you want to retire your parents, and a lot of people have those goals, but they make those goals are basically consuming them to the point where they need this they have this feeling that they need to constantly be making money, which forces them to use the market as a tool and get into positions when they shouldn't be. How do you think you find that balance, or how did you find that balance in terms of um, being at the screen for excessive periods of time and transitioning from that to having a more methodical approach?
yeah, I definitely was at the screens for excessive periods of time. I actually just put out a tweet today that said something along the lines of never sacrifice your mental health for more screen time. I used to spend 12 to 16 hours a day staring at the chart and actively trading the chart in 2018, 2019. So for 2 years, I totally nuked my physical health, my mental health, and after 2 years of your high school buddies or whatever asking you, hey, do you want to come out to this party this weekend? Do you want to do something? Blah, blah, blah. And you just keep blowing them off. They stop messaging you, right? So I just got rid of every good thing in my life. I was as skinny as I ever possibly could have been. I played sports growing up. I was always in really good shape. And I just nuked everything. And it was just markets, markets, markets. And then the irony of that is that in March of 2020, I got my ass handed to me and I basically blew up my account and went down negative 80%. So it was like none of that actually mattered. It kind of just, it felt that much worse because I dedicated so much of my life to markets only to yield an unfortunate result, right? So it was like, I need to spin this around. And I already knew what it was like to spend so much time staring at the charts and not being disciplined and kind of just like leaning really heavily into variance. Um, and that kind of just allowed me to open my eyes and broaden my perspective a bit and be more disciplined and want to be more disciplined. It's again, you have to consciously do this thing. But I always say, it's not the decision that you make that ruins you. It's the inability to accept the decision that you made. So the
Mm.
example that I always give to this is in, I want to say, whenever price broke out of that 30K range in 2023, I want to say it was October-ish, and Bitcoin was trading at like 28K. And I have a free Discord. I don't mean to shill it, but I have a free Discord, and I have all the receipts in the free Discord. I was saying, hey guys, I think that Bitcoin, just reclaimed some key levels. I think that it's going to go to 31K. That's the range high, but I'm not stopping there. I think that Bitcoin's going to go higher than 31K. And if we break out of that, 7-month long range, the philosophy that I have is don't fight it. It's a 7-month long range breakout. This is something different that we've not been able to do at any point the past 7 months. So just target the top right corner, turn your brain off, and you'll probably be fine, right? So that was my analysis prior to us even breaking out of the range. And then somebody goes, oh, so did you trade Bitcoin? How did you trade it? Would you set your stop loss? And I was like, no, I didn't trade it. Wait, hold on. You just told me that Bitcoin's not even going to just stop at 31K. It's going to go way past it. Well, I decided not to trade it because I already had an investment ledger with a sufficient amount of Bitcoin in it. I didn't feel like I needed more Bitcoin, especially exposing myself at mid range, even though I only have one primary anticipation at a time. It's not like I'm hedging myself. It's not like I can play 18 million different outcomes at once. I'm only ever exposed or not exposed for one thing, right? So even though that's my primary anticipation, I couldn't justify the excessive risk on Bitcoin necessarily because I saw Solana also breaking out of a 10-month long range. And I was like, I don't have any Solana exposure. and Solana is probably going to outperform BTC, so I'll go buy Solana instead. And then I looked at INJ at the time, and it was doing the same thing. I looked at, I believe, RNDR at the time, it was doing the same thing. And I grossly outperformed Bitcoin. But had I sat there and told myself, no, I'm not going to buy Bitcoin. No, I don't want to buy Bitcoin, even though I think it goes higher. And then at $35,000, all of a sudden, here I am market buying Bitcoin. Well, now I lost the plot. Now, like you said, I can't even obey myself. I can't even follow the same rules, the same discipline that I set for myself. And something that my friends always bring up is when you create these rules, when you create these game plans, you develop like a system and invalidations and where you're going to take profit and whatever, right? When you develop that stuff, you are in a calm state of mind. You are playing on your own time. There's nothing kind of like, there's no urgency, there's no desperation, there's no emotions. It's just, you are just being very rational. You are the, peak self. And then all of a sudden, here comes the moment. Now we're at 35,000, and impulsive Mercury all of a sudden now wants to market buy Bitcoin. And if I would have, we pull back -5%, what's impulsive Mercury going to do? Market sell Bitcoin at the local bottom right before it keeps ripping, right? So it's like, it's never actually the thing that you do or don't do that ruins you. It's your inability to accept the decisions that you've made. And that's kind of, it's not like me trying to project onto other people. This has been my experience. This is,
Right.
I've had to run through this process a million times over for it to finally click. Like, okay, even if this means that I'm going to miss out on this trade, I need to make sure that I'm okay with that, right? Because it could have just as easily gone the other way, and variance would have played out differently, and now all of a sudden I would have been thanking myself for not taking that trade. So just make whatever decision seems best in the moment and be able to accept the pros and the cons of whatever that decision is moving forward.
That's beautiful. As a follow-up question, do you think, to play devil's advocate, do you think it's a necessary evil to be obsessed with the market when you start off in order to, quicken the learning curve, or to get to a point where you do have a framework or a method in place? Or can it be a balance right off the bat? What are your thoughts on that? Because across the board, studying people who are successful in different realms, you see there's always some kind of unhealthy obsession, at least to start off for a period of time, before they reach a balance. So I'm curious to get your thoughts on that. Do you think it can just be a balance right off the start, or do you think it's a necessary evil to, spend 16 hours in front of a screen?
Oh, man. I think there's a middle ground between the two. Because I do believe that you're right. To some degree, you're not going to be great at anything without being obsessed over it. And this is something that I believe Kobe Bryant is notorious for saying. And everyone knows, like, anyone who knows basketball knows, like, Kobe Bryant's work ethic, right? Mamba mentality. So that's kind of the mentality that he takes into it. And to some degree, I absolutely agree with him. You're not going to be great at something unless you obsess over it. But at the same time, there's a difference between obsession and addiction. And that's where the line gets drawn. So it's like there's a thick concrete wall between good and great, right? In order to cross over that wall, you have to be obsessive. But then there's a very thin line between obsessive and addictive.
Right.
And that's where people kind of take it too far. So I feel as though, like, I can't have any regrets, right? That's a philosophy that I take into life as well. I have no regrets because everything that has played out in my life has allowed me to end up where I am today, and I love where I'm at today. So I have no regrets, but I also feel at the same time, instead of spending 12 or 16 hours a day, maybe I could have just gotten away with 6. And that actually would have been a lot healthier. And that's still incredibly obsessive, if I'm being honest with you, right? Most people, have jobs, have kids, have hobbies, whatever, and struggle to even give 30 minutes of their time to the market to scan up on their watch list or check on what's hottest, or what's the new meme coin that just dropped or whatever. So 6 hours a day is still incredibly obsessive, but it would have been sufficient, I feel like. And obviously I can't actually say, I can't go back in time, but I feel as though I could have gotten away. I wouldn't have nuked my mental health. I wouldn't have, broken my workout routine and been the skinniest I ever was and basically lost all muscle that I ever had. I wouldn't have lost all my friendships, right? And maybe that kind of environment, maybe because that environment was better, maybe I would have traded differently. Maybe I would have been more efficient when I actually went and took those trades. So it's kind of it's a touchy thing to kind of try to answer, but I don't think there's a great answer. I think that people love to be very black and white about it. I think that
Yeah.
GCR at one time said something along the lines of like sacrifice your weekends. And everyone goes, oh, okay, yep. Yeah, everyone needs to sacrifice their weekends. If you're not obsessive and you're not spending 18 hours a day staring at the charts on Saturday and watching Bitcoin trade in a negative 1% range or whatever,
Yeah.
then you suck at trading and I hate you. It's like, no, dude,
Right.
that's not like GCR is not God, or
Right.
whatever. Like there's no laws with this. And that's kind of the beauty of markets. It's like the epitome of freedom. You get to play things however you would like to. And there's going to be pros and cons with either way, right? But yeah, I think that's just, it's very touchy. You have to kind of just do whatever's best for you.
Yeah, no, I like that. I mean, like you said, there's no black or white. And I think, and especially in uncertain environments, people usually seek that black or white, and that's just not there. There's always a gray that you need to operate in and understand that balance. But speaking of extremes, I really like this tweet that you put out. I believe it was recently, and in that tweet, you said something along the lines of, "You are already trading an extreme market. You don't need to abide by extreme rationale." I thought that was great, but I wanted you to elaborate a little bit for people that are listening and what you meant by that.
Yeah, the most obvious application of that is leverage, right? And high leverage trading in a market that is already incredibly volatile. And I know that, man, it breaks my heart that the consensus is this is the worst bull market ever because I struggle so hard with it because this is the market, the same market that allowed me to retire my parents, right? So it's like I can't see that point of view. I'm not allowing myself to see the pessimistic, woe is me, universe is out to get me kind of point of view. I feel as though people try so desperately to make it that they off put their own kind of timeline in terms of when
Yeah.
will they succeed or if they will
Right.
ever even succeed. And again, to draw back from another quote, people underestimate what they can accomplish in 10 years and overestimate what they can accomplish in 1 year. And I
Hmm.
think that's a great philosophy for markets, right? How many people do you have on crypto Twitter telling you that this is the last cycle ever? And if you didn't catch whiff rally, and that's going to be the last meme coin that ever, does that kind of a move. And if you missed out on this and blah, 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 then you suck and good luck. Have fun staying poor, right? It's like, no, dude. I remember when people told me that in 2021. I remember when people told me that in 2019. It's never been the case. The market is always incredibly abundant, especially this one. And you kind of just have to take a bigger perspective on things in order to be able to see that. And again, if you were to put all of crypto on a pie chart and compare it to the rest of traditional finance, of all the other finance in the world, or maybe just even money supply, you wouldn't even be able to see the fraction of the pie chart that is crypto. That's how small it is. But it's like we don't see that. We live in our own little bubble. We have all these influencers. We have our own kind of community, right? So it's like that's where we kind of delve into, and that's all that you see. So this market is already extreme. You don't need to be zero or hero, right? And High Stakes Capital and I had a really good conversation about this, and I said something along the lines of, and anyone that I've ever talked to in my 7 years of trading crypto, I've never come across somebody who didn't make enough from a bull market. I've only heard about people, every single person ever talked to, myself included, only ever has stories about how they didn't keep enough of what they made.
Hmm.
And High Stakes Capital, of course, right? And if anyone that knows who he is, this is my brother, by the way. You know, we're good friends, but um, it makes sense that he would think in this manner and kind of go against that. And he disagrees. And it's like, well, yeah, he takes a very much zero or hero kind of approach to the market. He takes these opportunities, whilst they are abundant in terms of, assuming that you're going to live the next 10 years, this is that opportunity here today. So make the
Yeah.
most out of it right here, right now. And so, full on, foot on the gas and no brakes kind of thing. Whereas I am like, okay, well, trading is an invaluable skill set that I get to take with me to my grave, right? And there's no limit on how much that I can generate for myself through trading or through markets. So I always just say, You know, I don't need the market to trend upwards. I don't need the next opportunity to come tomorrow. I just need the market to exist. And if the market exists, then I'll be fine, right? I'll do good. So it's a different approach. I don't feel as though you need to be so fixated on capturing every opportunity and maximizing opportunity, especially as a beginner. I feel like you just need to dip your toes in the water first. I feel like you just need to know what it's like to capture an opportunity at all with even some kind of meaningful portion of your portfolio, right? Because then the hurdles don't stop. People think that, you know, as soon as you hit a banger trade, that's it. You won forever. Now you know what it's like to just win, or maybe that trade is gonna, you know, retire you or whatever. Now that's not how it works, man. You go through this brutal process of taking trades, getting chopped up, revenge trading, boredom trading, not being disciplined, getting absolutely obliterated, learning what the difference is between reversal setups and continuation setups and the perceived probabilities along with them, and wondering why you're on a 10 loss streak or whatever. And then you finally turn it around and you start to catch wind of what it's like to be consistently profitable. And then you run into new hurdles all over again. Now you find yourself, even though you're in winning trades, you're taking too much profit off too early. This is something that I really struggled with. This is the hardest
Right.
obstacle for me to overcome. I always, every single time my monkey neuron brain would see green, I would just be like, "Oh my god, market close," because I'm more risk averse in my innate nature. It's kind of just who I am.
Right.
So again, that's something that I didn't know about myself, even though I know that my wife wants to go on roller coasters and she wants to go skydiving, and I'm like, dude, I'm not going. Right? Like, I'm not jumping out of a plane on my
Yeah.
on my own free will. Like, only in an emergency. There's no way. So I'm like, you know, that's who I am, and that makes sense that I think about markets that way and that I trade markets that way. But I had to figure that out, though. I had to kind of, so it really is that corny cringe self mastery. You learn so much about yourself by trading the
Yeah.
market. It's so reflective of whatever you give into it, it's going to spit it right back at you. You know, if you come into the market with a woe is me, brutal mindset, oh my God, you know, markets suck, then yeah, the market's going to give you that kind of energy right back to you, right? Because that's what you've created for yourself. So yeah, I forgot the even what the question even was. I've been so,
No, I think you
I
covered
love
it.
to
I think you
rant. I'm
covered.
so sorry for anyone who's
No,
just
no,
now
no,
listening to me speak, man, and they're just like, this guy just babbles and yaps. I'm really good at that.
no. I'm sure. I'm sure they're getting a lot of insights from this. So you posted a beautifully written article on Twitter by the name of White Swans. I think it was about a week and a half ago. For everyone listening, I highly suggest you go and read that article or post on Twitter. And it basically outlines the obstacles you and your family went through and how it shaped the way you change your approach to trading. And the highlight for me was this one line: "I needed to never cry about money." So what I wanted to ask you about was, how does one harness this ability to never needing to cry about money, especially for people that are listening in that are like, hey, I'm not where I want to be right now. How can I not cry about money? I need to chase money. What would you say to that?
So yeah, so that was the question that really framed my perspective, and allowed me to start building on top of it when, because March 2020 was a reset for me. So the whole article, basically the TLDR is, I was a degenerate and I was very egotistical. I was very overly confident in my abilities because I had done very well. All my grinding had paid off, all my addiction, right? I call it obsession, but it was an addiction for the markets for the 2 years leading up into March 2020 had paid off. I had multiplied my account, I think 5 or 6x, and you know my ego is through the roof, and I was trading with 100% of my account. 100% of my account was also 100% of my net worth, because keep in mind, at the time I was 19-ish years old, and um and people would always give me, every single adult role model that I would look up to would always tell me, and even people on Twitter would always tell me, you're young, take risks, just go balls to the wall with your risk. Who cares, right? If worst comes to worst, you can move back in with your mom and whatever, no big deal, right? So I took that and I ran with it, and I was trading with 100% of my account, and that was 100% of my net worth. I clearly recall a time where my mother asked me for $10 of gas money, and I was like, and even though I had several tens of thousands in a portfolio or whatever, even though I had that, I was like, Mom, I don't have $10 to give you for gas money. Like it's all it's all in crypto world. It's gonna take me some time to pull that out. So very much like the extreme of extremes, right? And that's kind of what I mean by you don't have to fight fire with fire in crypto. You don't have to be extreme and trade an extreme market with an extreme approach. Very much that side of the curve to all of a sudden totally opposite. Now I'm balanced. Now I've actually understood what it's like to build a portfolio, right? I think about it as kind of like a maybe like a pyramid, and at the bottom of the base layer is the earth, right? It's when you're building a house, it's the foundation. It's my bank account, it's my income, it is my expenses, it is all of that. It's all of my savings, my nest egg. This is what I live off of. This is how I'm going to buy a house. This is my equity. This is, the assets that I own. This is how much cash I have in a safe account or whatever, right? That's the foundation. And then on top of that, still a pretty big layer, I have things that I really enjoy in terms of like fundamentals that I want to be invested in. So different, IRA accounts or whatever, but also Bitcoin, Ethereum. For a long time there, it was BNB. I know I'm going to break some people's hearts, but I've never invested in Solana. Sorry. But yeah, so I have those investments, and that's kind of more of like no matter what price this is at, I'm always going to be okay holding this asset. Even though I took profit on my investment ledger, I didn't capitulate it. So I don't foresee a time period where I never own Bitcoin. I'll probably, if I make it to 100 years old, I'll probably still be holding Bitcoin to some degree, and my kids will get it, and so will their kids. So these are assets that I really enjoy, and I really do think have the potential to be here for a very, very long time, and kind of just playing the time variable there from a more investment kind of standpoint. And that then branches off into the layer above that of the pyramid, and it just gets gradually smaller and smaller. And I don't know if this is true now that I took profit on my investment, but whatever. But the layer above that would be whatever I've dedicated to like swing trading. So more high time frame spot positions. That is where I make 90% of my wealth in this market, is just by high time frame swing trading spot positions, whether it be Solana in October 2023 or recent trades that I took or whatever. So, and then it keeps going, right? We keep going up the pyramid, but I'm dedicating less and less of my portfolio because these are things that I don't necessarily feel as though I am as strong in those aspects. So more low time frame trading. And then at the very tippity top of the pyramid, I always kind of break it down in terms of I have my primary mental state in terms of like how I trade markets and how I'm kind of like a mercenary. I come in and I extract my wealth, right? This is how I generate my wealth through markets. And that's through swing trading and setting positions and stop loss here and take profit there, blah, 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 whatever. And then I have secondary. So it's more degenerate gambling. When I saw Trump coin get listed, and I also think that fate loves irony, because people were kind of just like bad mouthing it and saying like, oh my God, it's such a scam. I can't believe this. And I'm like, dude, who cares if it's a scam? Like, I know it's a scam. So is everything else. Like the US president made a coin. Shut up and bid. Like that's what my thought was. Right. And so I saw that coin and I saw it 3 or 4 hours after it was already created. I was late and it was at 5 billion market cap when I saw it. And then 15 minutes went by because I went on to one of my exchange accounts and I liquidated everything in my portfolio, turned it into Solana, and then sent it to a Phantom wallet. And that took about 15 minutes or so. And within those 15 minutes, it was up another 50%. It was at $7 billion market cap at that point. So it's like, oh, man, whatever. But I just market bid. I just said, shit, this is the MNGR tweet, is the epitome of it. And it's so ironic that, Twitter loves to just repeat this mantra over and over and over 5 times a year. There's free money on the floor. Do nothing, pick it up, do nothing. And that's outperformance. And I was like, the US president just made a coin. How much easier could it get? How much more free could it get? He's spoon feeding me money. Okay, I'm going to shut up and bid. So I did. I took a very big position in it. And thankfully it was very liquid, had no issues getting filled. And it 10x'd in 2 days. And then I sold. I'm not kidding you. I sold for a 10x. I sold $70, which was the top. And then I never looked back. And that was me just kind of dabbling in a secondary state of mind. Because I'm thriving in my primary state, I'm then able to go take some profits from there and go use it as play money, right? Now I'm playing
Right.
house money kind of thing. And that's my secondary state. And I know that I'm not an on-chain sleuth. I know that I'm
Right.
not good at dictating what's going to be the next hottest meme coin, or what are people going to think is funny, or what's going to stick. I know that I'm not good at that stuff. So I still want to play it. I still want to dabble in NFTs. I still did well on ordinals, right, on Node Monkeys. But obviously that's not my forte. So I still want to be able to participate in those things. Crypto is too damn lucrative for you to be honed in, tunnel visioned on one specific thing. It's way too lucrative. There's so many opportunities out there. Airdrops. I've probably gotten, I don't want to say the number, but I've gotten a ridiculous amount of airdrops in the past 2 years. And it's not like I'm a farmer. It's not like I dedicate my livelihood to farming airdrops and looking for the next hottest thing. So secondary state, the tippity top of that pyramid, the smallest piece, but even that in itself proved to be very fruitful for me because it was just such a great opportunity, right? Trump coin. And that's just one example, but yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just thinking about that meme of the average participant having like 7 figures in their MetaMask wallet and their debit card is like overdrawn, as you were talking
Yeah.
about the pyramid, right? And I think one thing I think about, especially when it comes to on-chain, and I'm far from like being an on-chain sleuth, but I almost think of it as like you need to be left curve when entering and right curve when exiting. Especially on-chain, because a lot of people that mass bid that coin also didn't take profit and round trip the whole bag. But yeah, that's kind of how I think about it in terms of on-chain. Like you need to just go with the flow on certain things and not think too much, and then make sure that you lock in profits.
Yeah. It helps that it's so accessible for the new people coming into crypto. And a lot of the new people coming into crypto, like I am this age group. So all the people of my age group are very much like, oh my God, Solana, I can download this Phantom wallet and go, participate in degeneracy and make a bunch of money. And so it helps that, we do consider those participants left curve, but they're also the people that are able to materialize any kind of profit or any kind of gain from this aspect because they're the people that it resonates with. So that has
Yeah, no,
then
that
created
makes sense.
like discrepancy on Twitter where you have OGs like old heads and whatnot that really don't understand the meme coin stuff or can't comprehend or just think that the market is stupid, right? It's like crypto's lost the plot. I've heard people say crypto failed as an industry, and yeah, it's just kind of like mind-boggling to them. But then you have people that are genuinely very good at catching the next hottest thing, and I have the luxury of being able to talk to some of them. So, and those people tend to be, younger. They genuinely are alpha in terms of like what's the next hottest thing, what to look
Right.
for. Even I know people that scroll TikTok and just sit there for hours and scroll TikTok
Yeah.
and find out what's the next hottest thing that's trending on TikTok. Somebody in my Discord shilled Chill Guy when it was $3 million market cap. And then
Yeah.
within, I think like 2 days or something stupid, it went to 500 million. And it was just because it was blowing up on TikTok and that was it. So like that is
Yeah.
alpha, man. And that tends to resonate to
That's
that
an edge. Yeah,
younger
that's
age
an
group.
edge.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Chill Guy, because one of my friends, he had friends who were on TikTok all the time. So he was just asking them for, hey, like what's going on TikTok, what's trending, and he told them about Chill Guy at and he found Chill Guy at 200K. But then he sold for like a 10, like he basically sold it for a 10x versus
Yeah.
whatever it could have been. But the
The
point
irony
here
is,
is that you could generate an edge, in any, like you can be so creative with. That's what I love about the market. Like there's so many different avenues that you can go down to find an edge, right?
yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so let's pivot a little bit. And unfortunately, I think some people that are listening in, or maybe a good chunk of people that are listening in, probably want to hear an answer to this question. And by the way, this is not financial advice, but I wanted to ask you this question. What advice would you give to yourself if you started the cycle and are currently down bad on your altcoin bags?
Oh man, write it off as zero and start over.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's the only thing you can
Yeah.
do. And so here's the thing with that is that that's the oftentimes the hardest thing to do is to just like pretend like it never happened and not pretend like it never happened, but you don't want to sulk about it, right? There's a big difference between using hindsight to your benefit and sulking and being traumatized by whatever previously happened. So use that experience and learn from it. Everything is a learning opportunity. It really is. It's unfortunate that everything that is very, very true sounds very, very corny, but everything really is a learning opportunity, man. And you never learn from wins. You never ever learn from wins. You only learn from losses. You only learn from failures. So, and then when people can look at you and say, "Oh my God, that person got lucky because they're worth $10 million and they can finally retire," according to some of crypto, then you can say, when you're tackling this issue, the main thing to keep in mind is you have to make sure that you are curing the cause and not treating the symptoms. So people love to just kind of fixate on the short term things. So, like for example, um, if let's say that I've been poking fun of PopCat for the past 5 months, man, but if I'm in a PopCat long and I'm down -90%, I'm not going to ask myself what happened with PopCat. I'm going to ask myself, how did I get to this point to where I bought PopCat and then found myself down -90%? So, what led to that exactly? So, it's not how am I down -90%? It's not how can I get myself out of this PopCat trade? It's how can I never find myself in this position ever again? And that's kind of what I mean by, in that article, I meant like never have the ability to cry about money. Find some kind of way of developing like a balanced approach and have hard set rules and philosophy and apply the discipline and execute fluidly as you possibly can and just kind of go with it and see what happens next. And you have to just make sure that you're always focused on the long-term vision and not allowing short-term kind of things to sway you, because whenever something bad happens, we tend to just fixate on that one thing that happened, as opposed to looking at the ladder of events that led into that decision process. So, I'm trying to think of a different way to spin that around, but yeah, that's the gist of it, man. Cure the cause, don't treat the symptom.
Yeah, love it, love it. Thanks for answering that. Okay, so I think I know the answer to this, but do you keep an eye on macro at all, or do you follow what's going on in terms of news and announcements?
No, I don't, and I never have, and I never will, and I think that says a lot. I don't need that external thing. I don't need CPI in order to tell me like, hey, Bitcoin's in a range, right? Or like I didn't need Trump to become president in order to know that Bitcoin was uptrending. Like I don't need those things, and obviously
Right.
they might be helpful. Maybe I can, and that's not to say that I have never used them or never kind of ventured off into that more speculative kind of way of thinking. Um, in markets, you are inherently going to speculate. That is the nature of markets. You can't shy away from that. But I think that the beauty of it is that I don't need those things, and I kind of just let them come to me. So like that September like high conviction kind of trade on Bitcoin, when I'm starting to buy in just below 60K with the extent of my position, right? I'm fully sized at 60K, and I'm like, all right, this is what I'm working with. When I'm doing that, I'm also considering something like global liquidity projection was breaking out. And
Mm.
I can look at the past like year or so or two of global liquidity and then Bitcoin, and you can put those two things on a chart, and you can see that pretty much Bitcoin just kind of lags whatever global liquidity is doing, with a lagging kind of span of like 30 to 60 days. So I was like, okay, yeah, that's another argument as to why I would want to take this position, but from an external standpoint. So those are afterthoughts, though. And I've never needed to lean on that. I've never had to use that as my crutch. That's never been the foundation of the primary basis as to any of my successful trades or positions that I've taken. So it's always, I'm trading because of what I see on the chart objectively, what's staring me in the face, and what my system is telling me, and what how I perceive that trigger. Because discretionary trading is the epitome of, you can get the same input, but that doesn't mean that you're going to get the same output. So everything that triggered in September that made me want to flip bullish, bar the higher low on the weekly, is the same thing that triggered in August that only led to a 5% push upwards before immediately selling off and going to 50K. So how come I wasn't making those same arguments in August? And it's because of that discretion, right? Even though it was the same triggers, viewing it differently. It wasn't because of a news event. It wasn't because of Japanese yen crisis, which is why the market actually sold off, right? It wasn't because of any of that. It was because lower highs, lower lows on the weekly. It was because ideal place to find another lower high. It was because of all technical reasons. So I had my reasonings, I applied it, and then the narrative followed. And that was kind of the beauty of it. And so this isn't just a fluke. This isn't just a cherry picked example, sample size of 2. This is 7 years of consistency. I have never, ever needed external things to tell me what the market is doing and how I should be trading it. It's always just been smoke and mirrors. It's always just been overcomplication. It's always just been an afterthought.
That makes sense, man. That makes sense. And what I wanted to ask you as a follow-up question was, and this is something that I ask everyone, how did you go about developing conviction in your method? And this is a straightforward answer for most people, but I always ask this for people that are listening in. How do you go about like developing conviction in how you trade?
Conviction is vindicated through profitable experiences, through forcing yourself to run through the motions and do things the right way. And then you see, it's like working out, right? It's like, it's really, really hard to get into a
Right.
workout routine. Anyone that is in a workout routine will tell you, you just got to get past the 21-day mark,
Yeah.
right? Because after that, it becomes habit. And then it becomes addicting. You start to look in the mirror, you flex your bicep a little bit, and you're like, oh, there's a little bump there. And now you're like, now you're caught, right? Now you're hooked. Now you're going to keep going to the gym. Now you're going to keep eating right. You're going to keep, just overloading with protein and whatever. You're going to keep going and doing that because now you've become addicted to the results of the process, not even so much the process itself, but that means that you are inherently now indulged in the process. So if you want those results, you have to keep trading the right way. You have to keep putting on risk management and applying that concept properly. You have to keep being disciplined. You have to keep just being consistent in the way that you operate. And that's going to hopefully yield the same results over time. And the further that it does, so now all of a sudden you're not just 3 months of profitable, consistency. Now it is 6 months, a year, 4 years, 5 years, right? I can humbly say that I'm coming up on 5 years now. With March 2025 will be 5 years for me. Profitable consistency. So now it's become very vindicated. Now it's become a dogma. It is not anything that someone else can shake me out of. It is law for me, and that's all that I know. So that's all that I can preach to people, right? If they're going to ask me, how do you trade ranges? Well, I don't really care to trade ranges, so I can't help you there. How you buy reversals? Well, I don't do that. So how do you short? No, I don't do that. So I only know what my experience has been, and I don't want to know anything else because my experience has been amazing. So that becomes vindicating through time. But at first, you kind of have to fake that confidence until you make it. You have to believe in a system. You have to believe in a methodology. You have to believe in winning concepts. And you have to overlook the short-term variance of things. You have to know that you might call that trend breakout a trend breakout, or you might call, Bitcoin breaking out of 70K in November of 2024. You might call it a breakout and start to look for price discovery, but we might deviate back inside and immediately head for 50K. But you have to know that what you did was right. You made the right call regardless of whatever the market did, because long term, the next time that we break out of a massive range, maybe you do get rewarded for calling it that way and trading it that way. And the reward is going to heavily overcompensate for whatever risk that you lost and you were forced to accept the last time that the range broke back inside. So, right, we would anticipate like a 50% move or so, 100% move or so out of an 8-month long range. We would expect big, big things. That doesn't mean that every time that I call for a range breakout, it's always going to break out and give me a 100% move. So you just have to believe in the process. And then once you start to feel what that's like to call a range breakout, to call an uptrend, and then watch it uptrend for the next 3 months and hundreds of percentages, then it becomes addicting. Then it becomes, okay, I see the value. Now I'm not faking it anymore. I have a little bit to start to work off of, and then you keep rolling with it. And you're going to come through hurdles. You're going to, the market's going to test your resolve. It really is. There's going to be times where you call for a trend reversal to the downside and it looks like a breakdown, smells like a breakdown, trades like a breakdown. Oh, but just kidding. It's a fluke. It's a bull trap, or a bear trap. It's a deviation. It's a sweep at the lows. And here we are making new all-time highs again. Well, you have to know that eventually one day that trend is going to break down. And the way that you navigate that is by calling it a breakdown. And that's the best thing for you in that period. And you have to be able to, I know that I'm ranting, but you have to be able to overlook the, if this happens, now I'm ruined kind of mentality. All right, if I call the trend breakdown, a lot of people are so damn fearful of calling something a breakdown and cutting a position because what if they cut at the bottom? You need to break what if. Nobody cares about what if. What if never saved anybody. Even if you cut at the bottom, you can buy the reclaim. Even if you sell the lows, you can buy the highs, and then maybe it trends from there. Whatever. There's always a backup plan for your backup plan for your backup. There's always another move. There's always another chess piece. There's something else to capitalize off of. And if it's not on Bitcoin, then maybe it's on Solana. If it's not on Solana, maybe it's on Ethereum. If it's not on Ethereum, maybe it's on something else, right? Market is abundant, man. So the worst thing that you can do is just not execute for the sake of what if. You have to take some pride in your own abilities. You have to show your resolve. You have to prove to yourself that you can be fluid and you can execute regardless of number go up, number go down, number go sideways. And then over time, once you look back and you see the market gone up, gone sideways, gone down, not just, hey, we went up 5%, hey, we went sideways in a 2-week long 3% range, hey, we downtrended negative 10%. You've also seen negative 80%. You've also seen 300% gain. You've also seen an 8-month long 20% range. Now, all of a sudden, you have experienced every outcome the market could ever possibly throw at you, and to every degree possible, small or large. And you look at your portfolio and it's damn near new all-time highs, and you see a steady uptrend in your P&L. That's vindicating. There is no better feeling. It is addicting, and you never want to break that. You have figured it out. It is clicked. You found a way to generate wealth for the rest of your existence.
That's a great answer, and I love that you elaborated on that. And I think I posted something the other day too, is focus on hitting singles versus home runs. And I think a lot of people fall into that trap where they take a trade and they think this is the trade, like this is the one that's gonna give me back this much more, like thinking in terms of P&L. And it's really a marathon, not a sprint. And I think a lot of people fall into that trap of thinking like this is the trade every time they take a trade. And like you said, having an abundant mindset and understanding that the market provides countless opportunities is really the way to go. One thing that I've noticed is a lot of people have this problem when they first start off, is they keep jumping from one thing to another in search of finding something that would be consistently profitable for them. And they'll just go through like, okay, let me throw up RSI and I'll throw in awesome oscillator and then I'll have all these other indicators. And, it's like more complexity in their mind seems to equate to more profitability, which is not necessarily the case. What would you tell those people, for anyone listening in? They're trying to find a system and they're jumping from one thing to another.
Yeah, for those people, I would say indicators cannot save you. That's just not how the market works. You're not going to know more about the market because you've added things that you have to force yourself to observe in order to feel like you know more about the market. You don't actually know more about the market. You know things that were already redundant to you. So like, I'll give you RSI as an example. RSI is screaming, we are overbought, 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 uh, in that like range breakout on Bitcoin when it's $80,000 after it just broke out of an 8-month long range. Well, yeah, because RSI is comparing to this is when we were trading inside of a 8-month long range, right? So
Right.
relative to that, relative
Yep.
strength, relative to that, we are overbought. But what is the context though? We're breaking out of an 8-month long range. We're in new all-time highs. We're in price discovery. Nobody knows how high this thing goes. Maybe it goes to infinity, right? Maybe Bitcoin does go to $1 million. You don't know. How do you know that 80K is the top? RSI does not know that either. So it's not going to add any value to you. You're just overcomplicating things. You're just maybe being redundant in terms of information that you already knew. So like if you go turn on stochastic RSI, it's going to show you like, hey, this is maybe starting to curve the momentum a little bit. Okay, did you not know that with the 3 days of stalling that we did at 80,000 after a big like green candle to break out of an 8-month long range? No, you already knew that. And stochastic RSI is helping you portray those thoughts. So now you're leaning into it. And that's become like you've magnetized towards that thing. I always tell people when external, viewpoints look at my system is black and white and gray, except for the two moving averages on the chart. The two moving averages are the 200 EMA, 200 MA, which you already noted. But they're green and blue. So in a black and white chart and with my gray boxes that I use to portray support and resistance, on that chart, those green and blue lines really stick out. They are like shining, right? So people gravitate towards those and people think that that's the foundation to my system. It's not. It's just market structure. It's just general, where's the chart headed? I do not need moving averages in order to tell me what is the chart doing. I use moving averages to get a more precise, more digestible kind of way of interpreting what is the chart doing. I already knew the chart was heading up. I already knew the chart was getting chopped up and moving sideways. I already knew that this was a downtrend before I even turned on the moving averages. They don't help me in that regard. They're not showing me any bit of information that I didn't already know. I think every indicator needs to be treated that way. It's not providing insight to you. It's helping you more tangibly define what you already thought was the case, right? Or what you already knew. So just be careful. I was that person, by the way. I was the person that not just indicators, I would, go use this indicator, use that one, use that one. Oh, I took, a loss here. So this indicator sucks now. Let me go use something else, right? I was that person. And it was torturous. It really was. It's not fun to jump around and be very sporadic about the way that you like to trade markets. And it's hard to want to stick with anything because the reality is no indicator works greater than 50% of the time. Not a single one, right? And there's a very specific reason as to why people will code algorithms that they claim to be infinitely valuable and then sell them to you instead of using them themselves, right? Nothing is gonna work greater than 50% of the time. There's variance though. There's times where moving averages are incredibly rewarding to be using trend trading systems. So, but that comes with context though. You have to understand that that's the environment that we're in. So really the value in learning to use indicators is in learning when not to use the indicator. And the alpha is not that I know how to turn a green and blue line on my chart and just say, oh my God, we're heading up. Okay, green button, right? That's not the alpha. The alpha is in knowing back in August, yeah, sure, we're above these green and blue lines, but nothing's changed though, right? I don't need to put so much emphasis on, oh my God, we're uptrending because we're above these moving averages. I don't need to do that because I already knew what was happening. I already understood the chart and I'm deciding to give these moving averages less merit this time around as opposed to when we actually are in a more trendy market environment.
Yeah, that's really well put. That's really well put. And I think a lot of people don't realize, and by the way, I'm not trying to put anyone down. I mean, this is a natural progression. I think most people that I've spoken to have had the same progression where they start off simple and they move towards complexity, thinking like it will help their system, and then they realize that there's elegance and simplicity. And really what it comes down to is the alpha is the person looking at like it's you. You
Yeah.
need to understand how to use these tools and what they mean, and learn how to decipher. There's people who trade naked charts, right? I mean, there's people who don't have any indicators. They don't look at it. They just trade the naked chart. So yeah, it all really comes down to the person that's
Yeah.
executing. Really.
You know the irony? Some of the greatest traders that I know don't even look at charts to trade.
Yeah, yeah. There's also those people. Yeah, there's a lot of those
they don't
people as well.
assess macro, they don't look at
Yeah,
rates, they don't look at funding, they don't look at charts, they don't look at moving averages, they don't know what RSI even is, and they're some of the greatest traders that I know. And then you have people that there's one person in particular, I don't want to call anybody out or make people go on a witch hunt to find this person, but there's one person in particular that is a walking encyclopedia about anything TA based. And you can ask them like, hey, Gone theory, harmonics, Elliott wave, this, that, the other, right? It doesn't matter. They know everything that there is to know about all of these indicators, all of these trading systems, styles. They don't know how to
right.
trade.
Yeah,
They don't
yeah,
know. They've never been able to figure out. And so like, it's a totally different beast between being a chartist and being a trader. There's
absolutely.
two totally different things. So yeah, I feel like people indulge in the vanity aspect of trading way more than I would ever advocate for people to do so. And I only ever speak from experience. Again, like you, I don't want anyone to feel like I'm putting them down or trying to belittle or claim superiority. I only speak from experience. I was the person where I had
Right.
so many indicators stacked up on my chart that I couldn't see the chart anymore. The reason
Yeah,
why I use only 200 MA and 200 EMA is because I found myself, I had, 9 EMA, 11, 21, 50, 55, 100, 200, 200, right? So it's like, oh my God, there's like 18 moving averages on my chart. Where's the actual price action? Like I couldn't see it anymore. So I whittled it down, man. And just, the height of cultivation is simplicity. And that's really it. That's where
absolutely,
it stops.
absolutely. All right. So last question before I asked for some questions on Twitter, but I don't think we got any. But I'll look through that again. But the last question I had for you before we go to that is, what are your short-term views of the market, like the next few weeks, and long-term few months, if you have any? And are there any tickers or coins that catch your eye currently?
There's not any tickers or coins that catch my eye. There's not. I like to focus on outperformers. I like to focus on things that are very clearly expressing relative strength and momentum and outperformance. And then the idea is the outperformers will probably continue to outperform. I don't think that there's an amazing example of that. I think that there's tidbits of it.
Yeah.
We saw BNB, like BNB was ripping because of the whole CZ thing. Everybody's focused
Yep.
on CZ and his dog and whatnot.
The
So
broccoli.
there was
Yeah.
there's some spurts there, and BNB shows some promise right now. It definitely shows some potential, but it's not the epitome of strength. It's not the epitome of relative strength. It's not the epitome of outperformance. So it's a decent example, but it's not the example that I would like to use. I don't think there is an amazing example at this time as we're recording this this
Yeah, I
podcast.
agree with you.
So the market is pretty barren right now, if I'm being totally honest.
Yep.
But for Bitcoin, I am still very optimistic on a very high time frame outlook. Now, I like to break things down in terms of segregate the time frames, and once you put it all together, you understand it. So,
Mhm.
like when you are making a puzzle and you're putting this puzzle together, you don't just take two pieces out of this 1,000-piece puzzle and just go, oh, do these go together? Right? You don't do that because it would take you forever. So instead, you build the border, right? You find all the pieces with the flat edge. That's good strategy. And then you put all the pieces that have the same color schemes together, and you kind of frame those, and you get this section of the puzzle, and that helps you, clarify where these puzzle pieces go. Markets are the same way, or at least analysis is the same way for me. So on a very high time frame outlook, I'm still optimistic on Bitcoin because we're still holding higher highs and higher lows in the weekly market structure, technically. We are still above my trend portrayal, which I've used 12-hour 200 moving averages to portray a very high time frame outlook on Bitcoin. And they've done a pretty good job of helping my gut digest what is happening on a much greater scheme. We've only ever really lost them twice throughout the past 2 years. So the fact that we're still above them is potentially optimistic, right? It alludes to good things potentially coming soon. As soon as we start to break down below them, That would also, they just so coincidentally are lined up perfectly with the 2-month range. So this is where the time frames start to get segregated. But the beautiful thing is we have confluence because all the same general region is multiple kind of pieces of my system on different time frames commingling at the same general region. So the 2-month long range low, roughly around 91K or so, is beautifully aligned with those very high time frame trend portrayals. If we start to break down below the range, we are at the same time breaking market structure bearishly on the weekly, which we've only done one other time the past 2 years, and that was in June of 2024. We will also be losing that 12-hour 200 MAs trend, which we've only done 2 other times in the past 2 years, and we're breaking down below a 2-month long range. So if that happens, then I have to throw in the towel. And I don't know, maybe this isn't a bull market at that point anymore. So I don't think that way. I'm not like, oh my God, we lost the 12-hour 200s. All right, well, guess the bear market's here. That's not how I operate, but
Right.
I'm always mentally prepared for the worst and then, hoping for the best. So the market, if I'm being totally honest with you, has not been brutal. It has been volatility is very much diminished. The sell-offs on Bitcoin in the past 2 years have been
Yeah,
very mild in comparison to what they
absolutely.
previously have been. I remember days where we got negative 30% daily
Yeah,
candlesticks just in 2022 even, right? It's like,
yeah.
it's not that long ago, man. And then all of a sudden, like you look back at what is the largest drawdown the past 2 years and it's like negative 30%. Oh, but it took, 3 months for it to play out, for it to finally get negative 30% lower. So it's not been brutal. Most sell-offs have been, a measly negative 20% only. So what that means for me is I'm thinking bigger. I'm like, okay, well, we're doing this, and that. We might be fucked, right? And then all of a sudden the market's like, nope, negative 5% lower, and then V reversal. It's
Mhm.
like, okay, well, now I have to adapt. I have to call this an uptrend again. I have to look for exposure. I have to buy the reclaims. I have to do this. I have to do that. And that's proved to be fruitful for me. But eventually, the reality is one day we are going to break down below high time frame trends. The weekly market structure is going to flip bearish and it's going to stay bearish for 3, 6, 9, 12 months. I don't know, but it's going to be a much more prolonged, much more sustained kind of downtrend, and it's probably going to be a lot more ferocious as well. So I don't think that that's going to happen because the chart isn't giving me a reason to call for that here today. So I'm still optimistic. I'm still on the side of, we're going to break out above this range eventually and into price discovery the same way that we have for the majority of the past 2 years. And if the market proves me incorrect, then I will adjust. I will start to call the breakdown a breakdown, the loss of a trend, and a lower low on the weekly. I'll call that a lower low on the weekly. But until that time comes, I remain optimistic.
Sounds good, man. Thanks for laying that out in detail. I looked at the audience questions. Looks like we got 1 or 2, and they're not really relevant, so we're gonna skip over that. I like to do this one section. It's kind of like a rapid fire round, and I think I did this with you last time too, where I just like say a word or a phrase, and then whatever comes to your mind, you basically just respond with that. You
Yeah.
want to try that out?
Yeah, I
All
remember
right, let's
doing
do
that.
it. Yeah. All right. ETH,
Downtrend,
Solana,
degeneracy,
Bitcoin,
digital gold,
meme coins,
0,
Trump and crypto,
scam,
broccoli.
dog. Man, that is
Crypto Twitter.
cesspool. Nah, I'm just kidding. I have a lot of love for crypto Twitter.
Pump fund,
Scam.
altcoins.
Scam.
And then the question: what part of the cycle are we in?
Oh man. Later than most people are willing to admit.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, that's pretty much everything I had. All right. This last part of the conversation, I usually just like to ask about what a typical day looks like for you right now and what your current routine is.
Oh, my current routine. I'm very blessed, man. I wake up usually around 8:30. No alarm clock. It's been something that I really have not taken for granted since going full time trading. I don't wake up to alarm clocks anymore. I wake up whenever my body wants to wake up. So I get
Mm.
my good rest. I wake up in the morning. My puppy's laying right next to me, usually on my head, and then I, see my wife, and she usually sleeps in later than me. And I take my pup out. We go on a walk. I come back inside. I'll eat like a high protein diet. I'll go on, try to get like at least 30 minutes into like a weight room and maybe do some cardio and come back, scan the market. I don't know if I should show this, but I have a private Discord
You can do that. You can do that.
where, people are trading on my ref link and whatnot. So I go in there and hang out with those people, answer any questions, do some charting, scan the market, and I make dinner. I love to cook. So my wife's not much of a cook. We have a I cook, you clean kind of relationship. So I love cooking, and then yeah, me and my wife sit down and we relax. We watch our TV show every night or whatever we're watching, and wake up, do it all again the next day. It's a good life for me. So yeah, very simple,
That's
very
beautiful, man.
very humble. I don't do anything spectacular, but yeah, probably in the next year or so, I'm going to start traveling. So
Yeah, I was going to ask you actually if there's any new things you're looking to do, or in terms of any plans for the future when it comes to trading. Like, are you going to change things gradually, or do you have any plans in terms of what you're doing next?
I really am looking for business ventures outside of crypto, but I don't know how I feel about that right now because I feel as though I've mastered something only to milk it a certain amount and then move on to something else and try and get through like I'm going to get humbled again, right? I'm going to enter this new business venture or whatever and basically know nothing and have to go through the entire tedious process all over again. Anything that's worth doing never comes easy, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Um, so I'm kind of on the fence about what do I want to do next. I hate to say this, but I've honestly lost a lot of motivation for like being a public figure in crypto or like
Mhm.
existing on crypto Twitter. So I'm kind of on the fence about do I even want to continue that? But then with that, people genuinely come to me and say like, "Thank you so much for your takes and your perspective on things. It's helped me so much," and that keeps fueling that fire, and that's why I keep
Yeah.
going.
Yep.
So, man, it's hard. I'm at kind of like a pivot point in my life where
Yeah.
I've accomplished so much. It might be time to move on to something else, but is it really the smartest thing for me? I'm not sure. But my wife and I definitely want to travel a lot. We're looking into buying a new house, kind of upgrading. So, that's probably going to be something in my very near future. But I think after that, we really want to just get going places, go see the world, get that, bug out of our system before we settle down and start a family. So, yeah, man, life looks great, and I'm very blessed, and I'm thankful for my good health. I think that's something that often gets overlooked, and we don't
Yeah.
appreciate until you're already sick. But I've had some
Hmm.
really scary health issues in my life, and I've been able to overcome them, thankfully. And my family has also had some scary health issues, and all's been overcome. So just very grateful and very forward looking and optimistic. I preach this philosophy online and in my real day to day. If we were buddies and we grabbed coffee tomorrow, I'd be the same way. Um, a perpetual optimist and gratitude maximalist. I love that philosophy. That's gotten me through so many valleys in my life. Not just like past 2 years or anything, but just in general. And I'm going to carry that with me and instill that same philosophy in my kids and my grandkids.
Love to hear it, man, and genuinely happy for you. And also, like, I strongly believe that whatever endeavor you choose to go in, even if it's a painful process at first, you've already harnessed how to do that. So I truly believe that you'd be successful in anything else that you choose to put your mind to.
I appreciate that.
And to wrap it up, like, I'd like to for the listeners, is there any advice that you would give them? It could be anything, doesn't have to be trading related. Any tidbits that you'd like to give them before we end the recording?
Oh man, I guess just be a perpetual optimist. Honestly, markets really do reward those that are optimistic and patient, and that has always been the way that markets work, and that will always be the way that markets work. So, even you have to be able to recognize and see the other side of the coin, right? Where every you see something brutal, someone else has just made their previous yearly salary, right? So same kind of dynamic in the market. You have the ability to detach from things and create your own story. So like in the peak bear market lows, when everyone's claiming, hey, if you look at the Wall Street cheat sheet, this is capitulation. And granted, it was, but not in the literal sense in terms of what emotions are you experiencing. It was more, oh my gosh, I get to purchase 4 times, 5 times more of this asset that I love, right? So how is that a bad thing? So you take that kind of approach with you on markets. There's opportunity everywhere, and now if all of a sudden, if opportunity is existent 24/7, maybe we've created or curated the right kind of mindset to go and capture some of that opportunity. And I think that there's a lot of parallels between market philosophy and life philosophy. And if you can do well in markets, kind of like you said, I think that you can do well in life. I think that you've learned the foundation of it and the bulk of it. You can carry that mindset with you into any aspect of life. So I appreciate that you said that, though, but I also am an advocate for that as well.
Awesome. So I just started doing these again. I took a little bit of a hiatus because I usually only bring on people that I really enjoy, want to talk to, and also logistically, like it was with holidays and everything, it was hard to get anyone really. But I'm looking for. Do you have any recommendations in terms of people that I should bring on to talk to?
Oh man, maybe Doc XBT. That's the homie.
Yeah, I
He
had
and
him
I
on. I had him
usually.
on a while ago. I'll bring him back on again.
Oh, did you?
Yeah,
Maybe get the flow horse. Maybe get Ryan.
I've gotten him on twice actually.
Shit, man. Actually, I knew that. No, I knew that. I watched both of those.
Yeah. Yeah, he came on the
Um,
second time and he was like, "Well, I'm not gonna do any more podcasts. Maybe if it's
man.
yours, I'll do one again."
Um, hmm.
But you know what? I'll get Doc on again because it's been a while. I think it has probably been over a year since I've had him on, or right around
Yeah,
the time that I recorded with you. So I'll have to
Doc.
bring him on again.
Doc's always fun to talk to, man. It's really
Yeah, yeah,
enlightening. We
absolutely.
share a lot of the same perspectives and the same
Yeah,
philosophy. He trades differently than I do, but similar kind of ideas and same
right.
kind of gist. And him and I have
Yeah,
made
absolutely.
some nice YouTube videos and collabed on some stuff. So yeah, that's the
Yeah,
homie.
yeah.
I don't know. Maybe get Trader XO. He's had a
You, you, you
killer
know
few.
what's Yeah, yeah. So EXO, so I was planning on recording with him, and then we just talked for like 2-3 hours, and we didn't record the conversation. Like we just talked. So I'll have to.
He's an
Yeah,
awesome guy, man. He's super
yeah, he's
genuine,
awesome. He's
super down
awesome.
to
Yeah,
earth.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I talk to him pretty frequently, but yeah, I'll try to bring him on as well. But yeah, thank you for the suggestions. And if there's anyone else, yeah, feel free to just
I'm
message
sure it'll
me.
come to me. Now you're making me
Yeah,
feel bad because I have so many. Oh, dude, get Pierre Crypto.
Pierre. Oh, okay, okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'll try to
Yeah,
bring him
the
on.
moving average god, man.
Yeah, I'll bring him on. I'll bring him on. All right. Is there anything else that you'd like to plug?
Nah. Anyone who wants to follow me, I have an educational playlist on YouTube. If you want to learn more about my system, more of my psychology, there's everything. And the good thing about that playlist, even though it's very low quality, there's a lot of it. And I was cussing a lot because I really didn't care. I didn't take it seriously. I didn't think that 3 years from now, 80,000 people almost would be listening or watching or whatever. So it's very low quality. It's very much like it sounds like a high schooler made it, but there's a lot of value in there. So anyone who's interested in that, and then it also helps you understand and be vindicated by the philosophy because everything that I'm talking about is it kind of plays out, right? You get to watch it play out. So I made that playlist. I think the majority of it was made in the bear market. So you get to see how I was navigating the bear market in real time, but you get to know what actually goes on to happen, but you have to listen to me, talk about what I think happens. So I think that's something that a lot of people have been able to find a lot of value in, even though it's kind of low quality for what I would like to put out in today's world. But other than that, I have a free Discord that people can join, and then through that, you can always join my private Discord if you really want to get even closer. I do live streams in there. I talk about my trades and all that kind of stuff. So more closely and 24/7 kind of in there, pretty much chronically online. But so yeah, there's those
Awesome.
avenues if anyone wants to connect with me, or even if you want to just come in and ask me a question. I have people ask me questions in Discord And it's genuine like content. Like I write essays sometimes, and none of it gets seen on Twitter or anything along
Oh
those
yeah,
lines.
I don't doubt that.
I
I don't
genuinely
doubt
just,
that.
yeah, dude. Oh my god, I feel so bad. I love to rant. I love to just keep babbling, dude. But I'm the same way. Like if you ask me a question on Discord, I want to tackle every single nuance and caveat and detail,
Yeah.
and really make sure that my point gets across and comprehended well. So yeah, that's free. Like I do that because I genuinely enjoy helping
Yeah.
people, and I wish that I would have had, not to gloat or anything, not to toot my own horn, but I wish I had a TraderMercury helping me out when I was getting started. I really did.
That's awesome, man. And this was a really enjoyable conversation. I really appreciate you taking time out to come on for a second time. We'll have you back on maybe in another 6 months or a year's time, and we'll.
Yeah,
It
on
was great catching
February
up.
13th of
Yeah, February 13th,
2026, we'll keep
2026.
the
Yeah, we'll
streak
have to plan
going.
for that.
Yeah. Nah, man, whenever you want, man. I really appreciate you. And it's always fun to talk with you.
Yeah, this was a great conversation. And before we wrap it up, I usually like to end it on a thought-provoking note or a quote. But one quote from Bukowski comes to mind that I think encapsulates like this whole conversation. It's what matters most is how well you walk through the fire. So on that note, to everyone listening in, I hope you enjoyed the conversation and were able to take away some insights or actionable items that you can consider to improve upon. Until next time, thank you.
Thanks, man.